Dawn, another must-see game is number 7 Alabama at number 11 Tennessee, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. And really, the storyline to know, these are two teams that are kind of mirror images of each other right now, because just 2 weeks ago, Alabama and Tennessee was number 1 for Alabama. Tennessee was number 4 in the AP poll. Now, 2 weeks later, they're both outside of the top 5. With the Volunteers, they're outside the top 10 right now, because over the last 2 weeks, both of them have been very uninspiring right now. They both fell to unranked opponents in Week 6. Alabama lost to Vanderbilt, even though they were 22.5-point favorites. Tennessee lost to Arkansas, even though they were 14.5-point favorites. And then last weekend, again, against unranked SEC teams, they both barely squeaked by as well. Alabama trailed in the fourth quarter to South Carolina before barely squeaking by with a 2-point victory. They were 19.5-point favorites at home in that game. The Volunteers went to overtime with Florida, again, at Tennessee. They were home in that game as well, and they pulled off a 23-17 win despite being nearly 2 touchdown favorites in that game. So the winner of this game really gets the season back on track, while the loser of it, after the last 2 weeks and how they've looked, their playoff chances kind of go into free fall a little bit.
Yeah, the playoff implications here are off the charts, because you're talking about then the loser of this game gets a second loss, and if we've been thinking if you get a third loss, you're certainly out, and even if you get a second, especially with an unranked loss and some shaky wins on the schedule, especially for Tennessee, it really hasn't looked great in SEC play at all, especially offensively. These are the matchups when you start talking about these have serious consequences when it comes to this 12-team playoff. And a big win has real consequences too, right? For whoever comes out the winner, you're talking about staying in that top 8 to 10, sitting in there, okay, now we got through one of our big games, right? And I just think this is a game we're going to look back on, I think, come Selection Sunday and be like, okay, or Tuesday. Is it Sunday, Monday? I forget what day of the week. It's Selection Sunday. I think
it's Sunday. Yeah,
it is
right after conference championship.
I'm used to that with college basketball too. I'm like, right, it's on a Sunday. But this is a game we're going to look back on for both these teams, and the winner of this game is going to be at a huge advantage.
Absolutely. I just think it's so funny how they're basically doing the exact same thing as each other the last 2 weeks. They both lost to unranked teams a couple weeks ago. Both barely got by last week too. So we'll see in this one. And Dawn, also another thing that they share similarities in, both passing games kind of come and go at times. So go into the Tennessee one a little bit. How does Nico Iamaleava really improve off what's been, again, an uninspiring start so far?
Yeah, so this one's been going a little bit more than it's been coming. I mean, look, you can look at the surface level stuff and say, okay, well, Tennessee scores over 40 points a game. They must be really good. Well, that's really heavily weighted towards their out-of-conference schedule, right? 2 lower teams and then beating up on NC State. When they've been in SEC play, you're just not seeing a whole lot clicking, right? They're winning with Dylan Sampson, and they're winning with their defense. And their defense, I think, has been far better than we expected it to be. But this offense has to get it going. And honestly, it's Nico Iamaleava. Like, it's really him. We're seeing the youth. And I think I watch him and I see certain balls that, he might see the read and he just doesn't let go of for some reason, or just tentative when it comes to making decisions or wanting to take off and run. And then the certain times he does make decisions and the accuracy is just off. He's just not in a great rhythm right now, right? He was, he had the big week 1 against Chattanooga. That's an FCS team, but especially over the last 3 weeks in SEC play, 64.4 passing grade, 3 turnover-worthy plays in the last 3 weeks, 6.9 yards per attempt. And it's that last number there that I want to get into. Without play action, a 44.7 passing grade. And I know there's a lot of play action in this offense anyway, but it seems like the percentage is even more than usual. Max, they're running play action on over 58% of their plays, of their pass plays, which I'm pretty sure that's more than last year. And I know this, again, there's a lot of RPOs, a lot of play action. It's a lot about running the ball and tempo and all of that. But Tennessee right now, at least from what we've seen the last 3 weeks, they just don't have a drop back passing game. Yeah. And this is a real problem when you talk about sometimes you have to fall behind, right? Or you don't have to fall behind, but I'm saying, like, if you're playing from behind, you got to drop back and throw the football, right? The great quarterbacks, I say it all the time, when everyone in the stadium knows you're throwing, can you throw it? Right now, Tennessee cannot do that, and you have a problem with that if you don't set up Alabama, right? And Alabama, they struggled a bit on defense the last couple weeks, right? There's been some big plays. Second half of the Georgia game, the Vandy game was an issue because here's the thing, though. Here's why Vandy was an issue. Everything's set up, right? There's so many layers, right? Tennessee's offense doesn't look like it has layers right now, and the problem is when, Alabama's secondary, okay, their defense, when there's not play action, okay, they still have the fourth best coverage grade in the country. If they know you're throwing and you're not setting them up with play action and say all the stuff that Vandy and Diego Pavia were doing and everything's doesn't have those layers, it's a problem. It's a real problem. You don't want to just still be throwing into the teeth of this Alabama defense when it's 3rd and 10. So, look, I understand that Tennessee, they've been getting by playing defense, giving up not very many points a game, right? Even the game they lost, they only gave up 19 points, right? I understand they have to stay in the wheelhouse in its defense and run game, but eventually Nico has to give them something in the drop back game. It can't just be, okay, one read, play action. Like, I know he's young. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing just a guy who, I don't think mechanically there's anything wrong. He's obviously an amazing athlete, all that stuff, but I'm seeing a guy who's just incredibly young. Yeah. And when they ask him for more than that one read or more than just what the system tells him to do, it's not there right now. And I think if they fell behind in this game, they're going to have a big problem because I'm not sure, especially under pressure. He's got a 29.8 passing grade under pressure. Yeah. It's not great. Actually, over the last 3 weeks, I believe he has the lowest overall grade in non-play action in the country. So it's just, if they need to get ahead, they need to get the run game going early because I have no proof right now that Nico's going to turn it around in this game specifically.
No, and listen, Tennessee is 56th in pass blocking grade, and Alabama's 24th in pass rushing grade, right? So that if he's under pressure again, he's really been bad under pressure too. That's the other thing that's really been going against him in this season so far. On the side of the ball, to make sure they don't get ahead, you gotta limit the big plays from Jalen Milroe. And we saw this last week. South Carolina did an excellent job, and why they almost won that game was because on 10-plus yard throws last week, Jalen Milroe was 4 for 8 for 92 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks, right? 55.8 grade on 10-plus yard throws last week. So they did a great job taking that away and forcing him to be methodical. You got to force Jalen Milroe to be methodical because he is a big play waiting to happen because he's got elite mobility and a rocket launcher of an arm. He has probably the best physical tools of any quarterback in college football right now. So far this year, he has 14 runs of 10-plus yards. That's top 15 among all quarterbacks in the nation. He has 604 passing yards and 7 touchdowns on deep throws, 20-plus yard throws. That's each top 5 in the nation. Tennessee, so far this year, top 5 run defense grade in the country, 91.9 grade. They've only allowed 2.8 yards per carry to opposing quarterbacks, so they can maybe contain Jalen Milroe a little bit. And on 20-plus yard throws, the Volunteers are 20th in EPA per play among Power 4 schools. But it's safe to say they have not faced a quarterback who's even close to as dynamic as Jalen Milroe. So all those stats are great. And yes, Tennessee's offense has been great, and Taylon Green had some moments against them, right? Taylon Green really had some moments against them, and you got even a more souped-up version of Taylon Green in this one, in Jalen Milroe, right? So I'm really looking forward to watching that. Another match I'm looking forward to watching is that Tennessee defensive line against the Alabama offensive line, because Tennessee's defensive line, again, the run D has been great. The pass rushing has been really good as well. And then Alabama's offensive line, I mean, they were really good against South Carolina last week. And South Carolina's got an elite defensive line, and Alabama's offensive line stonewalled them, really. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that matchup as well. But ultimately, what's going to win or lose this game for Tennessee and Alabama is, can you make Jalen Milroe be methodical? And yes, he did it against Georgia. He was really good at doing that against Georgia, but the deep throws were still there against Georgia. Can you be like South Carolina and completely take away those deep throws? Because then you have a really good chance at beating them.
Yeah, no, I agree. Do we want Eli's thoughts on these?
We have to
game
get it
real quick. We want to get that real quick before the predictions.
Before our prediction, Eli, as a Tennessee fan right now, how do you feel going into this major game?
Don't feel too good, to be honest. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I really don't think there's going to be a lot. I mean, I just feel like Milroe and Nico have not been playing well. So I think it's going to be low-scoring. I got to go with the Vols.
Okay.
I like the +3. I think it's going to be low scoring. I didn't see what the over-under's at. I'm going to go something like 24-21.
Okay. Fair score.
I think that's fair, and I'll tell you what, he makes a great point there. I think if the score does get above that range, I think Tennessee does have problems. Yeah. I don't think they can score a ton of points right now. It's just not working enough in the passing game. That sort of pace, that sort of game, kind of the same pace that eventually Alabama, South Carolina got to, or we've seen actually from several SEC games last week and lately, some of these bigger games have been lower scoring than we thought. I think about even LSU Ole Miss last week. We thought there was going to be 100 points put up in that game, and it was, 23-10 to 16,
Yeah.
or I mean, for a long time in that game. So I think he's absolutely right. Right now, I don't think we expected this before the season, but Tennessee's winning with their defense, and they're going to have to continue to do that.
So Dalton, in this massive game, who gets a much-needed bounce back, and who sees their playoff odds get significantly hurt?
I'm taking Bama. I think Jalen Milroe is the best player on either side of the field. I think we're going to see a little more of Ryan Williams than we did last week, because I thought last week was, you could feel it, that Ryan Williams had a quiet day against South Carolina. And that South Carolina defense, that's an elite defense. I mean, I'll be honest with you, that's a tough defense to go against. Milroe made some mistakes early, especially late in the second quarter in that game, but I think he's going to be good enough to win this game. I know Tennessee's defense is really good, but I just struggle to see, if this game gets beyond roughly that score that Eli mentioned, how Tennessee is going to keep up. It feels to me like Alabama would want to go in there and play with pace, maybe take shots early, or maybe get into the running game with Jam Miller and Justice Haynes, but I've got Alabama 30-20. I just don't think Tennessee has enough through the air to match Milroe.
Yeah, I'm going with Alabama 28-24. I think Milroe's deep ball comes and goes, but Iamaleava just hasn't really been there, right?
It's just gone.
It's just gone right now, right? So that's the thing, is like, I trust Milroe more than Iamaleava, who again is very, very talented. I'm not selling my stock or anything like that on the kid. He's very, very talented, but he's also very, very young. But there's an opportunity there for him, because the one thing we haven't talked about yet, Alabama's secondary has proven that they are young as well, right? They have a lot of young players in that secondary, and Vanderbilt exposed them in that win over Alabama. I think there's an opportunity there for Nico to do the same thing, right? So, but I'm going to take Alabama in this one in a very, very close game, and I think Tennessee's playoff hopes go a little bit on life support. I'm not saying it's completely over for them at all. If they go 10-2, they probably still get into the college football playoff, but you pretty much have to win out if you lose this game. For almost either of these teams, you got to win out if you lose this game. So, yeah, I think Alabama's going to win this one in a very, very close one, though, 28-24, unfortunately, for our guy Eli back there.